This week on Streaming Star Wars with Emo and Fletzer, we talk about those crazy internet rumors, including the cancellation of the Kenobi series. We'll even talk about Taika Waititi's potential jump from the small screen to big.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
We are live on a Friday night. Ammo and Fletzer. I'm Ammo. He's Fletzer. I got it right this time. Heck yeah, we're live on a Friday. However, you may be watching or listening to us live on YouTube. As always, on the Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel. You can also listen to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Just search Around the Galaxy. Streaming Stars with Ammo Fletzer pops up in that screen. Like I said, I'm Ammo. He's Fletzer. Pete, a good Friday evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you, too. How are you doing?
Well, I'm really good, Pete. Let me tell you why. Because I got to watch a spectacular operatic performance today on social media. Because you had a situation where someone put out a tweet, and everybody took it as news, and it wasn't news, and it was great. I got to laugh, because this happens in my industry all the time. I go to work all the time, and people put out tweets. Sometimes the president puts out a tweet. It's inaccurate. And, the whole world blows up about it. And this was nice to see it on a much smaller scale. But my goodness, Obi-Wan Kenobi, did you hear that the series was canceled for about 45 minutes today, Pete?
What?
Yeah.
That seems very unlikely.
Wow.
But I'll believe it and retweet it. Hold on. Let's pause the show while I go and tweet out this crazy, crazy rumor about something that has no validity or resources.
I'm just being really ornery. Yeah, we're going to be talking about it. The Kenobi series is definitely still a go for Disney Plus, and we'll be talking about how Ewan McGregor's reps had to jump out and be like, "Yeah, this is complete BS." And we'll also tell you step by step who is responsible for this tweet and this BS news going viral, so you don't waste your time on these websites ever again. We have proof that. Listen, I'm not trying to be a jerk. And I think they're funny dudes, but we got this covered. We got Fandom Wire. These are websites that ran with BS off a satirical. No, that's how you say. How do you say that word? It's satire.
I would say it's satirical.
Satirical. That's how you pronounce that.
Or a parody website,
if you will. A
if you will.
parody Twitter account. So it's not even just a Twitter account. It was a BS Twitter account. We're going to be talking about that, but let's start something off with something that's a little bit more accurate, actually a lot more accurate. The Hollywood Reporter, Pete, this week comes out and says Taika Waititi, the director of one episode of The Mandalorian and voice of IG-11, of course, he's also the person that's responsible for directing Jojo Rabbit. He probably will win an Oscar for that movie. And also, of course, what he's done with Thor Ragnarok and what he plans to do with the fourth Thor movie. So the news is he comes out and he's getting approached by Lucasfilm to direct a movie. Don't know what that movie's about. Don't know when that movie would happen. But, Pete, I think we all react as one fandom and say, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. But here's the thing. You cannot go off of this just on one episode, because I think this is what some people are doing. They're going off of, what is he getting a movie for? He's only directed one episode of The Mandalorian. Okay, that doesn't matter. He has his foot in the Disney Lucasfilm family. He's there.
Right.
We already know that he's a great director from what he did with Thor Ragnarok. I just mentioned Jojo Rabbit. This man can give you comedy. This man can give you suspense, drama, thriller. This would be a great, I feel like this is a great move from Lucasfilm. But how do you react to it when you first read the headline, Taika Waititi approached for a Star Wars movie?
Well, the funny thing is, based on what got us on air tonight with the Kenobi thing, the first thing I did was I did a little bit more research to see if it was going to happen, because to me it sounded great, but it also sounded like a fan's dream, especially based on some of the stuff we've seen recently. So I love it, and I think one of the things that I think elevated The Rise of Skywalker, whether you like the movie or didn't like the movie, I don't think very few people would argue that the the humor worked best out of perhaps any Star Wars movie in Rise of Skywalker. And I think that's one of those things we forget that we really love about Star Wars is some of the humor, some of the lightheartedness, some of the just sort of it never takes itself or shouldn't take itself too seriously. And so I think Taika he's proven to be able to take some serious action movies and or serious topics such as Hitler's Germany, and add a little bit of humor and add a little bit of fun to it. So not that there's anything fun about Hitler's Germany, but he was able to find a way to find humor. And I think that's what Star Wars needs right now. I think the next trilogy, next movie, if I had two wishes for it, one would be that it would be all new characters. Let's start from scratch. Let's start fresh. And number two is that it doesn't go in and try to take itself too seriously. So I think Taika is probably outside of Jon Favreau, and probably, in my opinion, possibly better than Favreau to take on this kind of project.
And what's also interesting, too, is the fact that the story that broke yesterday from The Hollywood Reporter even mentions that Deborah Chow is in process of getting ready to direct the Kenobi series. So it's just kind of funny. We keep going back to the Obi-Wan thing just because it's kind of like that's going to be just a conversation where we beat this report to crap. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be like a piñata at a birthday party. It's going to be awesome. But I think what's interesting here is the fact that Taika Waititi also in 2019 is somehow able to make a movie where a kid's best friend, like an imaginary best friend, is Hitler.
Right.
Like that's crazy. Like I just saw an interview where they were interviewing Robert Downey Jr. and they're like, "Do you think you can make Tropic Thunder in 2020?" And he's like, "Absolutely not." He's like, the society and what's like the humor is like completely changed. Another example of this, and I think I brought this up last week even, Eddie Murphy was interviewed recently, within the last couple of months. Recently, it's a loose term, but just like, hey, do you think some of those jokes you made on Raw or Delirious in the 80s, could you make those jokes today in 2019? And he's like, some of those jokes make me cringe. He's like, I can't believe I was that person. But time changes things, society changes. We change things. So I think that Taika Waititi is a risk taker. I think he's comical. I think he's really smart, and I'm really excited to see what a Taika Waititi Star Wars movie looks, sounds, and feels like. To me, though, I think back to Solo with Lord and Miller. These are two directors that were known for their comedy as well. They were known as ambitious. They were seen as, kind of like the poster child for like the next generation of movies. Everyone was a big fan of Lego Movie and some of their other projects, and we know how that went. Now, granted, some of the reports on what they were doing on set were truly ridiculous, and it might have been for the best that Kathleen Kennedy did step in and get rid of them. But I really feel like when you hire on Taika, this is now, I think you can call him a Hollywood veteran. And again, he has this relationship with Favreau through the MCU and now here through Lucasfilm. So I feel like this is a great idea. And I just want to go through the article real quick. And again, the fact that he has worked with Favreau with The Mandalorian. He's still tied with Feige in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And they talk about how this is like a really exciting time for movies for Star Wars, just because like the Rise of Skywalker is dying down. Everyone's focus is on the streaming platform. Do you think though that this movie, like if this and we believe this report, it's not just a report, like this happened. Taika's going to do a Star Wars movie. But is it as soon as 2022?
I'll take it with a grain of salt just until we hear it from Lucasfilm, but this is pretty solid.
But is it 2022 release, or do you think it's going to be maybe 2023, 2024? Like, do you think that whole schedule we got 7 months ago is going to be shifted now because things happened? Most notably, we lost Benioff and Weiss to another deal, and so Lucasfilm kind of re-strategizes. And another good question here is, do you think that this movie? Well, let's not jump the gun here. I'm going to ask you about how this could be the Feige film, but do you think that this is still on the 2022 timeline?
Yeah, here's my prediction, and I'm notoriously wrong on predictions. So,
you might be.
So
That's fairly accurate.
Take this with. But my thinking on this is, let me just switch that and be very confident. This is what will happen, in my opinion.
I like that.
I think it's the 2022 movie. I think it's going to be more of a standalone. I think the influence that Feige will have will be similar to what we've seen in Marvel, is films that are related but not directly related. I think the end of the trilogy came with Rise of Skywalker. I think we're not going to be seeing movies that are spread or stories that are spread so importantly across 3 films, but I think we will see direct connections. So this could be the first of many, which will be following in a similar pattern. Although I'm not saying it's going to be Marvel-like in any other real regard, but I think this is going to be its own first standalone new content Star Wars movie. And I think it's important to take that one quick step back and say, even though Taika Waititi has the ability to direct and create content in an action world with some humor, he's not a comedy film creator, and I think that's the difference between him and Lord and Miller. Is Lord and Miller did Lego Movie, which was a fun kids movie, top to bottom, but Thor Ragnarok works, and the humor adds to it, which is how humor should work in Star Wars.
It does. Here's also another thing, and I'm going to go back to the timeline thing because I think this is really interesting, and I just want to make sure that we get this out there. The fact that if you have the schedule for Taika right now is still somewhat busy, right? Because he's doing the small budget. They're calling it a dramedy. Next Goal Wins. This is for Fox Searchlight, which is interesting because they just came out today and said there's like a rebranding of that. So that you're not going to have the Fox fanfare anymore. So that's kind of a disappointing, sad day there. He's also got Thor: Love and Thunder, which is now a late summer production start, and that pick releases November 2021. So then from the end, I guess you can work on those 2 projects simultaneously, but that seems very unlikely. He's also tied with Akira with Warner Bros. So that's a project going in too. So I want to say this is probably 2023 or 2024. I think things get pushed back. I think that this is the Feige project, and I would go as far as saying that I think this is that movie that we heard about happening 400 years before the events of the New Republic or whatever. And this is that movie that we heard about how it's going to be Jedi and Sith, which is kind of what you were describing. But I'm gonna disagree with one thing because there was the report that said that the evolution of Star Wars storytelling on the big screen, the structure is looking like it's going to be MCU. Supposedly, there are multiple films right now that are being outlined, and then they will all converge, forming what is like an Avengers Endgame or Infinity War. And so you're going to have several of these stories be told on the big screen, and then you'll have these characters that we follow in those come together, and it will be Jedi versus Sith. And I'm really excited about that. And something that was great in the comics, and I think it was The Rise of Kylo Ren #2, there was a reference. There was a reference to that time period.
High Republic.
Yeah, the High Republic. And so we're already starting to get little tidbits in there. And so I think that's what this is setting up to, which is, to me, really exciting. Because, Pete, what have I said before? What does Star Wars need more of? It needs more lightsabers. What does it need? Space battles. What does it need more? Force. Like, let's get into that. I mean, Star Wars is Star Wars is Star Wars. Rogue One taught us that you don't need to have those things to tell a really good story. You did have a lightsaber in the last 2 minutes, but that movie without the last 2 minutes, I think, is still the best Disney Star Wars movie. And then that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that as fact. It's my opinion.
Sure.
But I'm over the moon. I mean, how can you not be when you get that name attached to it? It's like when we found out Jon Favreau was doing The Mandalorian. That was a day where we were all on the internet researching to make sure that was real because you couldn't fathom. You thought Jon Favreau might do a movie, but he's going to be the one that kind of launches this Star Wars live-action TV thing, and now we're 8 episodes deep. Season 1 is a thing of the past now, and it's wonderful. I'm so excited to see what happens in Season 2. I got to think that I was making the assumption that Taika was going to be directing something in Season 2. Maybe he's not. It sounds like his hands are pretty full. I guess you slide in Carl Weathers to fill that void, get him some directing opportunities that we've known that for a little bit of a while. But there was not a negative. I mean, I guess someone could come in and say, well, it pushes the theatrical release potentially by a year or two. But you know what? If that's what it takes to get it right, and we're still getting quality content on Disney Plus. I mean, look at it this way. Everyone now is saying that Kenobi is going to be released for 2021, and when it originally dropped, the original report, I believe, said that it was going to be fourth quarter 2020. We were going to get it at the end of this year, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And again, we continue to try and follow what's going on with Cassian Andor, and there's not really an update there. There's not really any information there. And so I think we optimistically look at Disney Plus as where we're going to get our Star Wars fix for the near future. We know Clone Wars is coming out in a month. We know that we're going to get now this spin-off Rebels series that is anywhere from a year to 18 months away. And we know that we're going to get this Kenobi series in the next year and a half to two years. So there's a lot to be looking forward to. And, you know, what are we going to do in the meantime? The same thing we've been doing since 1977, which is binging these movies to an inappropriate amount, and it costs us valuable relationships. That's what I read on the internet.
It's interesting because the question then becomes, are they going to push all of the Star Wars theatrical releases to 23, 24 and miss that 22 deadline? Or is there some other trick up their sleeve? And I think that's one of the things that, like, we have Star Wars Celebration this year, and honestly, there's not much to talk about, especially if there's no movie coming until 2022 is far away for it. I mean, it's still a year and a half away, so there's probably a lot to say, but or enough to say. But if a Star Wars Celebration with just talking about, hey, Cassian is still coming, and look for Kenobi, and
there's got to be video. They have to have some visual of the Cassian Andor series at Star Wars Celebration. In fact, I would think that would be your most anticipated reveal of that weekend, Pete, when you go there in August to Anaheim. That I would think, would be your most anticipated. And also, maybe you get more clarity on the cartoon. I keep saying also. There is actually a lot. I mean, the Project Luminous thing that you have like Kevin Scott and Charles Soule and Claudia Gray and a few others involved with, that is going to be the big reveal, because it seems like that's also part of this plan where it's going to be this massive book, TV, maybe even movie story. It's all going to connect, the synergy. And I think it's going to be the Star Wars equivalent to the MCU. And also, who knows, maybe you're also going to be getting an update on Kathleen Kennedy and her relationship with Star Wars. I kind of always assumed like she would help get the original, like that Skywalker saga concluded, and then get the streaming stuff started, and have her had to hang on all of that stuff.
It's a perfect handoff, right? Because she was sort of the last remnants, if you will, of George's Star Wars empire, and so to have her be able to finish up the Skywalker saga, it actually makes a lot of sense. And I would not be surprised to see a major companies like to do it either one of two ways, sort of just kind of drop it on the side and say, by the way, we're doing a movie with whoever, and this is what's going to happen. Or the way Disney does most things, they also, if you think about it, they tend to cluster news. So I wouldn't be surprised to see an announcement at the end of January, beginning of February, that says, hey, we have look for Clone Wars coming in a couple weeks. Look for Kenobi. We'll give you a firmer date on Kenobi. And in 2022 or 3, whatever the number is, whatever the date is, you're going to get a new live-action movie set 400 years before the events that we've already seen in the Skywalker saga. And finally, Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down to go on to bigger and better things. And the Lucasfilm production is going to be led by whomever at that point. But I would not be surprised if it's like a major cluster announcement, and then in August all those things start to come to life for the fans and for the general public.
Yeah, I'm into that. And I also want to mention Daniel Jose Older. He's also another contributor for Project Luminous. I didn't mention him, and I want to make sure I get that name in there. Also, another name that we didn't mention, Pete, when we were talking about what could be another trick maybe with movies coming out, Rian Johnson is still supposedly on the movies as well. And of course, you cannot deny the success of Knives Out. But now here's the thing with this. Now Knives Out reportedly is already greenlit for a sequel, which Daniel Craig has already said, I'm down. And Daniel Craig is like, I'm going to make all the movies now, because apparently it comes out today that his Bond movie is going to be almost 3 hours long in length. So Daniel Craig is really he's feeling himself, okay? Feeling good.
Yep.
I wish I had his chest. Okay, so I think that maybe if there is a trick or another reveal for August, maybe it's some clarity on what Rian Johnson does, because I will stand by this. there are several things that I did not like about The Last Jedi, but there are several things I did. And I think that he proved that if people are a lot of fans, and I guess I have to include myself in this. Sometimes I'm just too protective of those characters, and I wanted to see something different, right? So I'm greedy in that sense, and I'll admit that I'm not a perfect person. I had a vision of what kind of story I wanted to see with Luke, Leia, and Han post Return of the Jedi. Okay.
Yep.
But with brand new characters in the Star Wars world, you cannot tell me that Rian Johnson can't crush that movie. Like, he will destroy it.
Oh,
if given that opportunity.
I totally agree, and I think one of the things I've heard consistently from people about Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi, a lot of people they point to, hey, we didn't like The Last Jedi because of what they did with the characters, and in fact, I spoke to one of my guests on Around the Galaxy, and they said, there's no denying it's a beautiful film, that it's a good-looking film, it's a well-developed film, it's a solid film, but if you want to make a Star Wars movie, or if you want to make that kind of movie, make your own science fiction movie. So take that and say, okay, we want to say, do your own science fiction movie in the Star Wars universe. And I do believe that he's proven that he can crush it. I also think one of the really interesting things about the backlash against The Rise of Skywalker is, I think Disney is learning that the people who love The Last Jedi, like, really loved The Last Jedi and everything about it. And so I think it's actually helping Ryan's position with Lucasfilm, what the mixed feelings on Rise of Skywalker.
I totally agree with you, and I just hope that in August, when we're in Anaheim, that we find out that here is an image, some kind of reveal. They don't have to have video.
Right.
I don't think there is anything to have video of, but just have an image or a title, something to get us going, oh, okay, that's what he's doing. I think that would be really great. We want to know what you think. So let us know down in the live chat if you're joining us for our live conversation, or if you're watching on the rewind, you can comment down below, or you're listening on the podcast stream. Great. Hit us a tweet. Let me tell you what that Twitter is, just so you know, so you can send us over your thoughts on Taika Waititi joining the Star Wars family, or rejoining the Star Wars family, as not just a director of The Mandalorian, but as a director of a Star Wars movie. You can tweet us at StreamingSW, and Pete and I moderate that as well. And hell, we'll tell you again, you can always join us live on Friday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, or Western, Pacific. I got it wrong. Dang it, on YouTube. And you can also catch the podcast feed Around the Galaxy. Just search Around the Galaxy. Streaming Star Wars will pop up. At some point, maybe what we'll do is we'll make our own streaming Star Wars location. At some point. It might happen. We don't know. We did a Twitter poll. People seem not to care where we put it. They just want to listen to the show, which is kind of comforting, right. I think. It's kind of comforting. Yeah,
it's nice that people want to listen, right?
Right, they want to listen.
We'll take it. But we love having you here with us, and it's interesting because we do try to stick to the streaming Star Wars stuff. But what's really interesting is I think we're going to start to see more and more of just this undeniable, indiscernible separation, or rather the opposite of separation, sort of the integration of all the services, whether it's live action films or whether it's movies, or movies on Disney Plus or Disney Plus series, or even animated. So I'm pretty excited to see where it goes.
Well, but there's a natural tie, especially with the story we just talked about, with Taika being involved with The Mandalorian as much as he was. And then, okay, it's like, all right, so we like what he's doing. Let's go ahead and give him a live-action movie. Like, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's what we've said on this show, and I think what a lot of other people are saying is, The Mandalorian, with having a handful of directors, you're giving opportunity to 5 different directors to see what they're capable of, what kind of stories they'd be great at. And same thing with Deborah Chow. Deborah Chow comes in there, does 2 episodes, and before we even get her second episode, Disney's like, okay, this girl is going to do the Kenobi series. We've seen what she's done, and it's like, okay, you go and do that whole 6-episode series. And everyone is literally foaming at the mouth. We have rabies because we want to see this series
Star
so
Wars
badly.
rabies.
Yeah, because of what she did with the action sequences, her framing. I love her timing. It just feels really good. You know what? It's interesting. So this has completely changed the topic, but what if, could you do so there's that 1916 movie, I think that's what it's called. It's out in theaters right now. It's a Sam Mendes movie.
Yep.
It's all shot as if it's one shot. You know what I'm saying? There's no cuts.
Yep.
Can you imagine trying to do that with Star Wars?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that would take a miracle of
Oh.
special effects and editing to do it in one shot. There's no way you could do it as a real one shot, I suppose. Well, maybe I don't know. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
who knows where we'll
Well,
go
you
with
can't
that?
shoot a
But
movie in one take, right? So it's just like how they pull it off. Like I got to see that movie because I want to see how they did it.
yeah,
But yeah, I just was thinking about that. That'd be kind of a cool thing to see. We want to jump in the live chat just real quick and say hi to everybody that's with us. We've got Jesse Buck with us. Jesse, good to see you, my
Jesse.
friend. I saw that Jesse is planning to go to oh shoot, what is it? The Comic-Con in Kansas City. He just announced Planet Comic-Con. He's going to
Oh,
in
cool.
March. So if you guys are planning to go, make sure you hit him up and see if you can meet up. We got Mr. Rez. We got Daniel's Hot Topics. We got Semper Fi Danny. And we also have a few others in live chat with us. 2Med2 is with us. So just a really cool crew in the live chat with us on this Friday night. So the next topic, and it's really the last topic of the show, unless we come up with breaking news. I made it.
We'll keep an eye on the Twitters and see
yeah.
what's.
So
There's got to be some crazy rumor out there somewhere.
the story is that the Obi-Wan Kenobi series is canceled. That was the rumor earlier in the day, like 5-6 hours ago. And it was put out there by, originally, it was from the parody account Dick Sussing Film, okay, which is
Right.
Discussing Film's parody account, okay? And they put out a tweet that McGregor himself, Ewan McGregor, had walked away from the series. Now, Pete,
Yeah.
judging from the fact that Ewan McGregor has gone on the record for 4.5 years, especially 4.5 years, the last
Right.
4.5 years have been very intense for Ewan, and he's been asked about it constantly. He's always said, I will do it. I will do it if they ask me to. Does that seem like the same kind of guy who'd finally get that series and be like, it's not for me, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I got to
Yeah.
go.
Hey, and I think that's the thing that's so ridiculous about it, and it's maybe this is a lesson for social. When we've been talking about social media, around the galaxy, when you talk about it on Beyond the Blast Doors, when you and I get online and we talk about it on Twitter, we tend to talk about the negativity and the sort of splintering of the fans. And I think this is a really great example of how and why it happens. And it's because people want to react to something. I think the people who shared it and without checking, and so I'll give you. I mean, I was literally out with my family. I've been gone for the last week. Came back with my family. We were making a couple stops before we went out to dinner. I pulled up my phone and I saw Ewan McGregor leaving Kenobi series on Creative Differences, and my first thought, like everybody, naturally was, "Oh my God, what happened? What's going on?" And then I did the right thing. I looked at the source, and the first thing I saw was in the description of that source. It says parody account, and then so that needed to stop. But what was weird to me was I saw it populating in places that I trust. And so I actually posted a tweet, and here's maybe some rules to live by.
Oh,
I
no.
posted a tweet that basically said, "What's going on with this Kenobi thing? Are there any sources or anything like that?" And then one of the people who follow me wrote back and said, "Looks like it's a parody account. Double check it. I haven't been able to see it anymore." And so what I did was I removed even questioning it. I didn't want to continue to populate the problem. And although, we here at Streaming Star Wars created an image and a entire webcast around the topic, the reason we're doing it is not to talk about and reinforce, this could be possible because, all the problems Disney seems to have with being able to keep directors. It seems like the way they do it because Disney's ruining Star Wars. Where we're going with this is we're saying, dudes, check this out before you continue to populate things that don't seem right or aren't based in fact or aren't based in some deeper knowledge. And so I think that's what's really critical. And if you walk away with anything from this tonight other than, my recommendation once again on Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Special Edition, drinking it here, walk away from it and just remind yourself to just double check it. If it doesn't sound right, it probably isn't. And at the very least, if it is, make sure you're checking those sources, because what they want, what the clickbait sites want, is for you to just automatically retweet it and drive traffic to those to their sites and to their accounts. And gosh, but that just leads to continued division in the fandom, because those that want it to be true, those that want to prove that Disney is killing Star Wars or whatever their agenda is, are going to use stories like this. And we know that too many people don't check sources.
You're right. Well, and you know what, though? It's a great example, as you said, the manipulation of the user, because so many people do go by just the title of an article, and they assume what that title says is what is inside that story. And when you look at the sites that are involved with this, it's kind of their main practice. So Fandom Wire puts out a story on this tweet, it goes viral. I think what happens is Fandom Wire, and we haven't reached out to Fandom Wire in full transparency. What's the point at this point, right? It's already been disproven by Ewan's representatives. But Fandom Wire pulls a website, and they're no longer sharing it. And I say there, Fandom Wire is technically an entity, so it's an it. So it's no longer sharing the story on its social media. But we got this covered. Decides to run the story, citing Fandom Wire as their source. So let me give you a few pieces of knowledge, okay? I work in broadcast news. I would fall under the category of a journalist by profession and trade, okay? There are situations where you have a really good source, and you have to you have to keep them anonymous, all right? And that's out of their safety, and that's fine. If they're proven trustworthy and reliable, and it's a safe thing, there are very rare situations where you'll have to be put in a position where you have to reveal that source. But people don't. If you have a source, it's not just like something you whip out. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not like, oh, well, I have a source that says this. It's just, it doesn't work that way. And Fandom Wire, for them to say the source is this tweet and not looking at the account to notice that it says parody account, as Pete mentioned, you now run into this thing where this website now looks outrageously amateur. And this website now has probably fans that are hardworking and very passionate, but a lack of attention to detail crushes them. And also, we got this covered is like famous for clickbait. And, well, we heard this rumor that this movie is every Star Wars movie you've heard in the last 2.5 years that is in production has come from these guys. And for a while, I listened to their show. I think these guys are entertaining. But ultimately, it's a crew that is in a comic book shop talking Star Wars. And some of their stuff, it hits and it's accurate. But some of it is it doesn't prove to be accurate. And this is why would you as an entity, we got you covered, or we got this covered, why would you cite a fan site as a source other than, here's the cop-out, and this is what we talk about all the time. This is a conversation happening in the fandom, how this all exploded. But what is the value of being someone that reports on other people's news? The exception being Star Wars Newsnet, because I think that there is a niche there where they've been proven to be a reliable aggregator of Star Wars content. So take Star Wars Newsnet off the table. For 100%, a legitimate organization, great people there. Okay, cool. And then you have websites like Making Star Wars, where Jason Ward and team churn their own unique content most of the time. Sometimes they comment on stuff in the fandom, but most of the time it's Ward with hey, I know this tad bit about Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Read if you want spoilers. That's the kind of content, that's the niche that website fills. But when you're doing this, that we got this covered, you're 100% just going for clicks and shares, which is kind of the business, but you're misleading your audience because you're saying, okay, well, if this report proves wrong, hey, guys, we cited this other website who said it was real. To me, that's crap. To me, that's clickbait. To me, that's a waste of time, and that's what, like Pete, also you said, that does create division.
And this is something you and I talked about a couple of episodes back. We were joking about it at the time, but I think this is some kind of proof on that. Is there's this new sort of, because everybody has a Star Wars blog or Twitter feed or YouTube channel or podcast. There's a dearth of content, but there's also at times a lack of content. And so it's almost become acceptable to to have a style of show that reports on other reports, and that's where the trouble leads, because if that's what you're doing, first of all, you're not really reporting at all, and that's to the credit of um, the Resistance broadcast or Star Wars Newsnet. I've rarely seen them run with something before double and triple checking it, and that's not a bad place to go to check and see if it's what the current thinking is on it. But that's what the problem is. The other thing is, here's a little piece of advice: if you click on the story and you have to continue to scroll through ad after ad after ad to get through paragraph to paragraph, that site is there simply to make money from stories that are clicking through. I have spent some time in the digital media space, and I can tell you that websites are paid on two things. They're paid on click-throughs, and they're paid through exposure. So all I got to do is get 1 million people to see those 40 ads literally all over your page, and there's money in that for you. I make more money if you accidentally click it with your thumb as you're trying to scroll through it. But keep that in mind. That's why they do it. And they will continue to feed off each other and cannibalize each other's stories as long as they can, because it just keeps people clicking. So again, I'm not here to tell people how to use social media, how to use their time on Star Wars. But what I would continue to suggest is just make sure that what you're clicking on, or more importantly, what you're resharing, takes full advantage of it. Semper Fi Danny is in the chat, and she's awesome to begin with. But she says, and I'll just read her quote: "I'm small potatoes in the fandom, but I also have 900 followers," which, by the way, not small potatoes. That's a decent number of people. Therefore, I think it's my responsibility as a fan to use my platform to ensure the quality of things I share and to debunk BS. And it's true. You can take that responsibility as far as you'd like, and I think it's important that as many people do it as they can, just so that we can stop, because somebody's going to see something and try to use it one way or the other in this current state of fandom.
I totally agree with you. And the thing about the time of fandom that we're in right now is the fact that everyone gets to have a voice, which is what we love, and that's what we celebrate. Just
Yep.
Look at us. Pete and I met because of the internet, and now we have this almost year-long friendship. It's why he drinks.
It is. It's really it's all making sense now. Hold on a second.
But that's the fun thing. And so, like Semper Fi Denny says, and there's several folks in the live chat right now that have YouTube channels. Maybe you're listening or watching this right now. You have a YouTube channel yourself, or you are very active on social media. It's a great tool and a great opportunity to meet a lot of other people. But this is a situation we're in. It's like you don't wait till the 10 o'clock news every night to find out what happened in your neighborhood. You go on your
Right.
phone, you look on Twitter, and instantaneously the latest news, depending on who you follow. And so there's definitely a lesson to be learned here. And, and it shows you the difference between, anyone can make a website. We have a website. Anyone can make a website. But it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of sacrifice of time. And it's having an encouraging fan base, encouraging audience that allows you to develop yourself into a trustworthy entity. And you can't sacrifice that in this day and age, because when you make a mistake, it can be big. And the hashtag show, and we got this covered, and Fandom Wire, unfortunately, had to learn this for themselves here in the last 24, 48 hours. I don't want to make this a bash session, but I do want to play a little game, Pete, before we wrap up this show. And I want to play a game where it's called It Didn't Really Happen That Way. Okay? It didn't really happen that way. And I want to take moments in Star Wars where it didn't really happen that way. And for example, Pete, the way this game is played is it didn't really happen that way. Darth Vader is not Luke's father. I've sent that out in the ethos.
Yep.
It just didn't happen that way. That is an example that really changes a lot of things, a lot of events in Star Wars. So, is there an event, Pete Fletzer?
Yes.
It didn't really happen that way. Do you want to change up the Star Wars saga? What's something that didn't really happen that way that would completely change the story that we all know and love?
So just so I'm clear, we've shifted gears a little bit. We're throwing out things that we would do for sort of alternate universe of Star Wars.
Yeah, basically just
and then we're gonna tweet them out and see if people believe them. No, I'm just kidding.
yes. Actually, Yes.
And actually, yeah. So the people watching our show are then going to go and tweet them out and source us and just.
I don't see what could go wrong.
No, I think that sounds like it's a lot of fun. No, so serious. So Vader is not Luke's father. I think it didn't really happen that way. It would be if Anakin got killed in the pod race and didn't make it out alive.
You just roll credits at that point, right?
That's right. Over. Thank you. It's over.
That would be fantastic. And then you'd have to have like some other movie where there's like somehow you have to have a world between worlds, and you'd have to go back and you have to pull Anakin out of the pod racer right before it explodes, and you'd have to plop him at the dinner table on Naboo. So you'd have a 9-year-old Anakin and an advancing 27-year-old Padme, or however old she is in Attack of Clones. And now you have this whole thing where it's like she's legal, but he's not. But that's the way this worked out, and now it's like she gets pregnant, and it's just this whole thing. And now the Naboo police are after Padme. It's like a galactic controversy. It's on the tabloids. That's nuts. That really would have astronomical ramifications in Star Wars. Luke and
I might have gone to the most extreme version because I think that would have just ended the next 8 movies. But
actually, what if or it's like Luke doesn't make the shot that destroys the Death Star in A New Hope. Like, he misses.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, don't have to worry about Leia's death in Episode 8 anymore, do you?
But you could that's a better example than mine, because with that, then you have a different story, but it can continue. There's still something that could happen. But yeah, I think that's. Oh, and I think I was saying to you not too long ago. Every time I watch A New Hope, it's such a good movie. I feel like there's still that chance he's going to miss it. He's going to miss that shot.
Totally. Do you have one, Pete, ready to go? I think there's some people starting to put it into the live chat. Put their takes. What do you think? Do we jump in live? Or?
Yeah, I like Semper Fi's where she says Mace Windu kills Palpatine.
It changes
that would
a
be
lot.
Cool.
It changes a lot. So he kills Palpatine. I think the assumption though is if Anakin Skywalker has survived the pod race and actually appropriately matured in age and stature, he probably still takes out Mace. Which would have been a really cool battle. And then you could have had George Lucas or someone else much earlier figure out how to bring Palpatine back from the dead, because he'd have to be back for Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
And then you could have had another spin-off movie, like Rogue Lost or something. It could have been called Rogue Lost. So I'm just assuming that every spin-off story now has to have Rogue in it somewhere. It's a bad assumption. I'm
not sure that's going to happen, but it's a nice idea.
You know what's kind of funny? And this is going to sound like an insult. This is going to sound like a really big insult, but it's not an insult at all, I promise.
Uh-oh.
So I don't think we talked about this last week. Star Wars Newsnet does this Twitter poll where it's like ranking the standalone movies. And now granted, John, Hoey, and those guys over there are like champions of hashtag make Solo 2 happen, okay? There's like 12,000 Twitter users that vote in this poll. And of all the standalone movies, Rogue One just beats the crap out of Solo. Like, it's not even close. Like, no one, apparently, no one, according to this poll, according to the people that voted in this poll, want the Solo. And I just felt so bad for them. Because there's always so much make Solo 2 happen love on social media. But, it was so funny. I was laughing. I was like, damn, guys, like, just keep the fight up. Clone Wars took like a decade to save. You just got to keep putting in time. But now it sounds like, did you see that there's a report that there is a reliable someone saying that a Solo something for Disney Plus is actually being tossed around the table. They're trying to figure out how they could bring it to Disney Plus.
I've seen that sort of bubbling out there, but I honestly think that whenever they say, that's another thing that I think as long as we're talking about rumor mills, I think the one thing to always consider, like they said, hey, Alden signed on for 3 films. Yes, he did, but doesn't mean they're going to make all 3 films. I think there's the other piece. What's that?
It came out. He wasn't supposed to confirm that to the public.
Right.
So
yeah. But I mean, and that's because the public, honestly, I hate to be that guy, but the public doesn't understand the film business. I don't fully understand the film business. I'm not saying that in that way, but and the same thing is with when they say there's something in development. There are right now, you could safely say, and you can go ahead and tweet this, that there are at least 15 Star Wars films in development.
Oh yeah.
Now, but that doesn't mean that there's 15 Star Wars films that are even written. They're
Agreed.
in development. And so, I think that's part of the challenge. I do agree. I think, look, the things that are pointing to making some sort of Solo something happen are, Jonas has stopped using the Make Solo 2 happen hashtag. Either he was told, cut it out because we're not going to do it, or he was told, cut it out because we don't want to tip our hand. And Jonas was using it, and I am a fan of the Resistance broadcast, and I do listen to them all the time, and they pointed that out, and it's true. But I also think it makes the most sense because let's face it, the main characters, the main actors, Jonas and Alden, they're not terribly busy right now, and I think they could probably find the time. They have more time than Taika Waititi, certainly. But and I think it makes sense. I think you could serialize and make sort of a buddy, sort of a Miami Vice, Magnum PI kind of sort of series.
Yeah, I'm with you. And by no means am I trying to report that like Solo is going to be on Disney Plus, but that's to me, that's something that I'd like to see. And if that's what's stirring, that's really exciting. I want to see how that develops. We can talk about what are the other 13 projects. Apparently, there's the Boba Fett thing is still in the works. Apparently, according to some BS websites,
Yep.
There's a
That's
Maul
always
series.
in the rumor. Yep.
A Darth Maul origin series is in the works. I personally think though, because there was an image that was shared, I think that the Maul thing there's something with Maul cooking. I really do think there is something cooking. But I don't have any facts in front of me, so I'm not going to waste our time.
So let's speculate responsibly there and
Okay.
say, and I believe that there is something, and I think it is that Solo thing. I think it's going to be focused broader than just Solo and Chewie. I think it's going to be about that whole crime underworld. And
Crimson Dawn and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, as we know from the end of Solo, that he's in a position of power in that space. So I think it'd be great. I would not, some people are like, oh, he's going to show up in the Obi-Wan series. I don't want to see that unless it's a recreation of the scene from Rebels. But I have no interest in seeing him meet up with him anytime before.
So here's the thing. So I'm going to talk about this. I'm sorry, Pete. What was the question you were actually trying to pose to me there?
No, I was going on record as saying that because you were saying that you were kind of buying into the idea of a Darth Maul origin series,
right?
And I said I believe the picture does have something to do with something he's involved in, or at least having conversations about. But I think it's more related to Solo.
I agree with you.
New Solo, yeah.
And I wanted to pull it up because I feel like that's my responsibility here.
Mm-hmm.
Back in December of last year, Ray Park puts out an Instagram post, "Meet me on Dathomir, Sith Life," and it's a photo of him, like of Ray Park of today, not Ray Park of like Phantom Menace era, in the Maul garb. And so I'm looking at this thinking, man, this could be a photo of him from when he was doing Solo, or this could be a photo of him working on something right freaking now. And I'm not the only one that thought this. This was December 27th, 2019. You can take a look for yourself. There's a lot of people asking like, what's going on here? Like, and also it's a beautiful photo. I want to see. Can I pull it up? Here, I'm gonna pull it up real quick. No, I won't do that because then Pete goes away. But definitely check that out for yourself, and it makes the imagination run, and that it would be great. Crimson Dawn, you have Maul involved. Maybe you get Kira back. What happens when she meets him on Dathomir? Would love to go back there. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I really thought that's where we were going in Rise of Skywalker. I did not think that they would make another new planet for the Sith, Exegol. I was kind of actually hoping it was going to be Dathomir. I thought that would have been really cool, or going back to Mustafar or something. But nonetheless, I think that's something that I want to see, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with like James and Joey and the good people over there at Star Wars News, Lacey, for example. Like, I love the making Solo 2 happen hashtag. I love that effort. But I always kind of felt that even the Solo movie would have been more effective on a streaming service or in TV. So bringing that to Disney Plus obviously would be awesome for all of us.
I'll add one more thing to that.
Sure,
and I think
sure.
one of the, again, we were talking about the concept of there's always 15 films in production or in development. One of the things that's really interesting is that one of the benefits to having the both the Kenobi series being shot and the Mandalorian being shot is they are creating new and reusable sets, and it seems like a really sort of trivial or tactical thing, but the reality is we now know for the Kenobi series, I would put a huge amount of disposable income on Kenobi going back to the cantina, if for no other reason because now it's already built. They don't need to rebuild that cantina. It's done. That street is done. It sits somewhere. All those pieces are either still up or struck and saved somewhere. So the more you do, the more of those things can happen and the more series you can bring together. Every set that's built for Mando can be reshifted or reused somewhere else. So that leads you to being able to, now you're no longer spending as much money on tactical production or tactile production. Your money's going into actors and special effects and post. So it does lend itself, and it makes the Solo thing much more likely because Solo has been to Tatooine and spoken to Jabba, and it all starts to come together, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and yeah, it's like also, how do you think that works? When they save some of these sets, like, do you think that there's just a warehouse where they're like, yeah, we'll just slide that in and we can bring that back? I mean, I don't really know of any. What are some set pieces in Solo that could even be still in existence at this point
from the Solo film?
Yeah.
I think, well,
like
certainly. I mean, you have a Falcon set. You have anything on Mando. I mean, and there's nothing to say that Solo didn't go to Navarro at one point, right? So I think there's also that big difference too, is having somebody like, if we bring it back to the beginning of this conversation, we think about having somebody like Feige who's going to be looking at, hopefully he's going to be looking at the broader stories that are going to be interconnected. They're going to be mindful of what they're building and the places. Look, I know we're in a different world now than we were in 1977, where they literally threw stuff out at the end of the day. And they know that there's a future. But investing, you don't have to invest 4 times to use the Cantina set in 4 different series. That will show up again. So
I think that's a really interesting take. I never thought about that. I guess I don't know for a fact. I feel like they still take all that stuff down. I just feel like you have a production budget and you're going to rebuild it. I also don't think the TV sets could translate well. I mean, I guess if it's a TV project for another TV project, that could translate fine, but it can never work.
Oh, that's what I'm definitely saying. I'm definitely saying it's TV to TV, and it's easier to pull in a movie set like the Falcon set. There's no reason why that can't exist on TV.
I'd like to pretend that there's a real Falcon somewhere. That'd be cool.
Yeah, Disney.
If I'm Kevin Feige and let's say they have a Falcon just they store it at the ranch, for example, I'm taking my lunch break there all the time.
Oh yeah, I'm playing Dejarik every day.
Oh, screw that! I'm putting my feet up on the console in the cockpit, hell yeah. Or I'll go down. I'll hang out in the gun pod where Luke blows up the TIE fighters in New Hope. I'd go down there. What is it called? The underarm guns, the belly guns.
I
don't know terms. I don't know terms.
See, when I get an hour into the show, that means I'm also an hour into my glass. So
well, right, and it's funny. Rick V is in the live chat with us, and he's like, "So, what is Pete drinking? What's the drink this week?"
Yeah, this week I went back to the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select, which is the only Jack Daniel's that I like. Other Jack Daniel's is a little medicine-y. This is a little smoother. So, but thanks for the question, Rick. I appreciate it.
I would agree with that. I'm still on dry January or a sober January. What do we call it? I don't know. I guess I'm doing a dry January. And it's working because I've lost, it's not that I've lost a dramatic amount of weight, but I know that I'm leaner every morning when I wake up because I don't have alcohol, beer in me. If I do a glass of red wine before bed, it actually shows positive results, but I'm not doing any beer. I'm not doing any liquor. I'm trying to get in shape. Got this wedding at the end of May, so I gotta lose some lbs here and get fitted for that suit. So that's why I'm drinking water in a blue translucent cup. So Rick V's asking how this whole conversation applies to casseon. I don't think it really does. I think Pete and I were just kind of going off on a slight tangent, speculating on several things. What ifs, which what ifs are fun to do as long as you don't say like they are going to happen, right? So how would this apply to Cassian? Well, it seems like there's just as good of a chance of Darth Maul returning on screen on Disney Plus as Cassian Andor, because no one seems to know what the hell's happening with that project. We reported a couple of weeks ago that supposedly they got out of production and things weren't right, so they had to go back to the writers' room. So there's no updates, and so we're kind of hoping that when we get to Star Wars Celebration in August, that there is some kind of update, some kind of visual, or at least Kathleen Kennedy or somebody can stand up there and go, "Hey, we had to reevaluate the project," which honestly they probably won't even admit. They're going to say, "Hey, we got out there to production. We saw that we had a potential to do an even greater story. We're really excited about what we were able to work into this plot. Here's an image, and it's going to be, I don't know, Cassian and K2SO running away from the Star Destroyer. Maybe they recreate the cover from the comic book. Who knows? But they'll have something, we hope. That's what we want to see happen. And then we know that series will happen. And maybe it's going to drop, some point in 2021 at this point. Because we also know, I didn't mention this earlier when I was listing off the things that we do know we're going to get, Pete. We do know that Season 2 of The Mandalorian drops fall of this year. So we have something to tie us over. Kenobi makes sense now to come out in 2021 to be something there. But granted, it sounds like you can bust out a season of Mandalorian in about a year's time. So who knows if there's a season 3 of The Mandalorian, maybe that's coming out also in 2021, or maybe it's also maybe it's going to come out in 2022 after Kenobi. We just have no way of knowing. We don't know how they're going to do this because Kenobi it's 6 episodes, but they are an hour length. That's what we're told. That is, the episodes will be an hour, and not like they'll be an hour and they're actually 32 minutes, like The Mandalorian.
Well, they never really told us what it was going to be. I think we all operated under.
We closed our eyes really, really tight. We were like clicking our heels 3 times, and we're like, "Please be an hour long. Please be an hour long."
Yeah,
it didn't work out.
It did not work out that well. But it's interesting because I think all these different series. I think Disney is still playing with what they want to do with this. I think they're still trying to determine and use. The streaming service. I honestly, I think they thought The Mandalorian would catch on, but The Mandalorian became the #1 streaming show, bigger and faster than Stranger Things, which is still shocking to me. And I would bet, if they're being honest, Disney didn't expect it either. I mean, and of course, I think a lot of it comes down to just the viral sensation that was the child, and I think they're probably thanking each other every single day that they have made a story that revolves around him and that he survived until the 2nd season. Because I can't imagine if they had shot the last scene of the last episode of season 1 and they give the child away, or something happened to the child. They would be scrambling to figure out how they're going to bring him back, because he's changed lives. He's absolutely changed lives.
Going back to our my little impromptu game of it didn't really happen that way.
Right.
The child dies, not Nick Nolte.
That's a rumor we should start. Yes, and if initially Kuiil was supposed to last through to the next season, and the child was going to get punched to death by a scout trooper. But that did not work out.
Did you see some story? Did you see some story about how they were talking about punching the child in that finale of The Mandalorian? And supposedly Baby Yoda is worth $5 million. Like the original Baby Yoda is worth $5 million, according to Jon Favreau.
Is that like estimated revenue, or is that what it costs to make it?
No, the revenue, it would be like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars at this point. I'm saying like,
right.
Supposedly that Baby Yoda is like worth $5 million. A $5 million, or maybe like it cost them like $5 million to make it.
That's insane.
Doesn't
and you know
seem
what?
excessive?
It's been worth every single penny. There's a really funny, stupid video. Maybe I'll try to find it, put it in there. But it's the song "Africa" by Toto. And every snare drum hit is that scout trooper punching Baby Yoda's in the bag. It's dumb. It's stupid. It's almost offensive, but I kind of like it.
That makes me smile so much. Like, and I was like, I remember watching that episode for the first time. I was like, man, am I allowed to laugh at this because it's punching a creature? And like, would like PETA, Feta, whoever, would they be upset about this? I'm like, it's just Star Wars. It's fine.
It's not real.
Yeah, it's not real. We had a great question sent to us from Rick V. What kind of tonal differences do you expect between the 3 series? But Rick V, I need you to tell me what 3 series you want specifically. Are you asking about Kenobi? Okay, Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, and Cassian Endor. What are the tonal differences we think that we'll get there? I think that I would say that Mando and Cassian would be more similar to each other. I feel like Obi-Wan will be drastically different. I would almost, like, not film noir, but I think that it's really going to be a character study of Kenobi. And I wonder if it's going to be, I don't know. I mean, this guy could have PTSD, and it could be dealing with, battling, like, this mental illness and then trying to combat, like, other temptations and this whole, like, trying to master the Force thing. And I just want Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon Jinn as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
That's really all I want in the series. I have no other expectations for that, but other than that, I don't know. What would you say? What are the tonal differences you anticipate between The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, and Cassian, Mr. Fletzer?
So I am with you. I think that's why we're still in this experimental phase, because I think because there were times where Mandalorian felt a little bit to me like old 1980s Battlestar Galactica. Some of it felt a little plasticky and a little bit like a TV show. I expect Cassian. First of all, I expect season 2 of the Mando to be a bit more, a little bit more polished. And again, not that it was bad at all. I mean, gosh, it was pretty amazing. But I think it'll be more film-like, and I think they're going to use those learnings to better build Kenobi and to better build Cassian. I'm curious to see what they do with the Kenobi series, because there's 2 things. One, I think nobody knew what to expect for Mandalorian, and we all had projected our thoughts on it. And I think, if we're all being honest, it was a little bit different than whatever we expected. But it was still really, really good. But I think the Kenobi series, I think you're right. I think if it's done right, but gosh, there's that fan film, that Kenobi fan film. Who's it who did that one? You mentioned it last week.
The Kenobi fan film? Oh, yeah, that was the Jamie Costa did that.
Yep.
It was awesome. It was like 15 and a half minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And he even had James Arnold Taylor in there as an Imperial officer, which is the guy who did the voice for Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars.
Right. He even says hello there, which is awesome.
Hello there.
But I think that was interesting because it was more character study-ish, and I'm with you. That's what I want. But watch, it'll probably be like the highest action series of all of them, and it'll blow us away because it won't be what we expected. And I think that's the other. We started this conversation by saying that Star Wars is when it's at its best, it's got a subtle comedy, or sometimes not so subtle, but certainly it lightens up what could be a potentially serious situation. And I think that's what we're seeing. That the second thing, if I would say, was a good quality of Star Wars, and that is it surprises us. I mean, The Last Jedi, of course, didn't do anything we expected it to, and The Rise of Skywalker didn't deliver everything we expected it to, or in the way that we expected it to. And so I think until we see it, it's really, really hard to say. We can all talk about what we want to see, but so I just saw Charlie Skywalker mentioned. I just saw this today, and I don't know if you knew this, but it was a cool fact. Charlie Skywalker, who joined us, welcome, Charlie. Good to see you. Mando, we should stick to the spaghetti Western style. And did you know that the double for Pedro Pascal, who apparently, according to you, Dave, is in there 90% of the time, is actually John Wayne's grandson?
Really?
Yes. So you were stunned. You were shocked. Yes, that's what I've read, and it's kind of cool because it's what's more Western vibe than John Wayne.
I can roll with that. Yeah, I mean they said that. I mean, the fact that he's not in that body the majority of the time. Of course, he was in there for episode 7 for at least one scene. Because we had to see his face. But Yeah, I think that's a really cool. I think Charlie's assessment is pretty right on, because you can't have. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you're gonna watch one show at a time, right? So they're not gonna want these shows to feel the same back to back to back. But also, you have the Clone Wars to break things up. You have maybe this animated series to break some of this live action stuff up. So maybe that's what they're rolling with too. True. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I think I'm standing behind what I've said before, and that is I think they're going to use at least the first couple of series to get a sense as to what works. Because they now, we also don't want to see 3 different versions of the Mandalorian, one with Cassian, one with Kenobi, and one with Jin. So I think it works. I think it's nice to see. It's nice to see different things, and I think the fact that if you're looking at 6 1-hour episodes with one director, you're going to have a very different feeling series than the other ones.
Absolutely. And here's a fun fact: we just got this in the live chat, and I remembered this. That John Wayne is the voice of Garandon in A New Hope, the long snout character that rats out our band of rebels going to the Millennium Falcon in Docking Bay 93 or 94, whichever one it was. Oh my God, how did I mess that one up? But he's the one that rats him out, and he is Garandon is a Kubaz.
Right.
Very interesting. I did not know the species. I thought Garandon was the name of the species, but he's got a metallic snout or whatever. Anyways, that was John Wayne. That's kind of a cool fact. So.
That's amazing.
Keeping that legacy, that tradition. It's in the family. It's a family trait, to be in the Star Wars movie.
That's great. That's cool.
Mr. Pete Fletzer.
Yes, sir.
Did you know that you can follow Streaming Star Wars all the time on Twitter @StreamingSW?
I had no idea.
Did you know that you could join us every Friday night for the live show, unless we change our minds on the Beyond the Blasters YouTube channel?
I was sort of aware of that, and usually I'm there for that.
Well, I know for a fact you had to know this, that if you can't catch the live show or don't want to watch the rewind of the show, but I would think you'd want to. You like to listen to the show.
Our faces?
Yeah, you'd like to see you'd like to listen to the show maybe in your car on your way to or from work or to and from your family that you may or may not want to see. You can go and look around the galaxy up wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Did you know you could do that and find Streaming Star Wars on the Around the Galaxy podcast feed?
That much I did know, because I have to load them up myself.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you're educated about where you can find the show. Episode 11 is in the books. And as always, just so thankful to share an hour with you talking Star Wars. And I say that to Pete. I say that to you watching this. I say that to you listening. We have a whole lot of fun here. A big thanks to everyone joining us in the live chat. 2Med2, Charlie Skywalker getting on here. We got Rick V, Rag718. Good to see you, Rag. It's been a little while. We've got Charlie Skywalker, like I mentioned. We also have just a slew of others. It's really nice to see everybody jumping in here and having some good conversation. Mr. Rez mentioned him before and some others. So really appreciate you being part of this live conversation. Before we let the good people go, Mr. Fletzer, what's in the future of Around the Galaxy?
Yeah, well, we have a couple of interviews that we're putting together for the next couple of weeks, but our next episode is number 50. And so we're probably going to put together some sort of a quick best of, because we have a lot of new listeners, thanks a lot to the show and just sort of the natural progression. So I'd like to give them the opportunity to hear some of the cool interviews that we've had before, but just pieces of them, just enough to make them want to go listen to them again. But that'll probably be this week. I can't believe it's been 50 episodes. And that, again, I've said it before. I think I said it on one of our first shows. I wouldn't be doing this if you didn't invite me on to Beyond the Blast Doors about a year ago. So I'm forever in your debt, or maybe blaming you for taking valuable time away from my family. But either way, I put it on you.
Every anniversary show you have in the future, you have to have me on. Every milestone episode, you have to have me on for me to go. My original vision for Beyond the Blast Doors was just an interview show where I reach out to people and see if they do one-on-one interviews, and I just didn't have the credibility. And then what's this Around the Galaxy thing on Twitter? What is it? Pete Fletzer, son of a bitch. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, he has credibility. That's probably going to work really well. And
then you stalked me, and you sent threatening letters to my house until I decided to do this show with you.
30,000 listens later, downloads later, whatever. 2 bajillion minutes listened. Christ almighty. We should do a best of show. We're 11 episodes in. I know it's not a milestone. If we wait till 50, it's gonna be a lot to sift through. But we've already got some really great moments on our show with Anthony Bresnikan and having Clayton on the show. We probably could pile up an hour-long show at least with some moments. And you and I think we're funny, so that's fun. Not sure if anyone else does, but we have a damn good time.
Hey, that's. I think with the 22 billion podcasts and YouTube channels out there, the people doing it better be having fun. But in all seriousness, we and you and I say this all the time, and we really, really mean it, because we even talk about it offline to each other about just the great people who follow us and join us and engage. It's just, it amazes me anytime anybody wants to listen to me speak. But the fact that a lot of you come back week after week is just, it blows me away. And I'm just so thankful to be able to have a group of people that we can talk Star Wars with. And that's a gift that we all should absolutely appreciate.
Heck yeah. And I want to throw it out there that Beyond the Blast Doors, the plan is to go live on Sunday. I'm really excited, Pete, because I got a new setup, a new vision for how we're going to set up the show for Beyond the Blast Doors. Just like how, like the setup for myself, Jesse, and David. And unfortunately, we just haven't been able to get the 3 in the same room. I was supposed to be in Norman, Oklahoma this weekend. So this week's show almost didn't happen. I was supposed to go out there, and then I was looking at the weather report, and oh man, this looks like it's gonna be terrible. So I didn't go. Ended up, I probably could have made it, but I want to get the 3 of us together. It'll be like a month and a half late, but we're gonna be talking about the Rise of Skywalker this Sunday. I've got a few things on the docket that we'll be able to chat about on Sunday morning. So I hope you join there, and there may or may not be a new member of the BTBD on-air crew. More details to come, but I'm really excited if she is able to join us. So I'm really excited about the potential here.
That's what we call a tease, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's a tease. That is a tease. I'm a good tease. I took a class in college to tease. All right, so that's going to do it. Episode 11 here for Streaming Star Wars. I'm Ammo. He's Fletzer. And a big thanks for you for joining us on the Star Wars conversation, because the galaxy far, far away always seems just a little bit closer when you and I and he are together. I was trying to rhyme, but I'm no rapper. Did you know Eminem dropped a new album? It's really good. Check it out. Okay, we'll see you soon. May the Force be with you.